I'd like to thank you all for coming to this afternoon's presentation on Fundraising 101. It's going to be really basic and right to the point. And because this is the Youth Summit, you're not going to be hearing much from me. I'm Garth Katner. I'm the Resource Development Manager for Westtown Bikes. It's a big, long, fancy term for basically grant writer and the person who puts the touch on our big donors to get us money for our wonderful programs. That's probably all you're going to hear from me because we've brought two folks with us representing the youth in our programs who have actually helped and led on various fundraising projects. And so they're going to talk about that. Our first is Shacora, and the second, our lovely assistant on the PowerPoint, he's going to talk, and that's Jeremy Santiago. So without further ado, Corey, you want to take it away?
Yep.
Right.
So I want to start off by telling you guys that I am one of the co-founders of Girls Bike Club, which is a club within Westtown Bikes. We're located at Westtown Bikes in Chicago, and we meet weekly on Wednesdays from 4:30 to 6:30. So being the co-founder of Girls Bike Club, I have a lot of experience in fundraising and recruitment and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited to tell you guys some of the stuff that helps Girls Bike Club out. So I'm going to tell you the fun stuff. So fundraising, the fun part. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you guys how to put the fun in fundraising because fundraising can be very, very fun. So here we have a picture of the youth of Westtown Bikes getting prepared for one of our events that we had coming up at the time. Everybody's on their computers and stuff. Like, everybody's doing something different. So one of the most stressful things of fundraisers can be, you know, that time up until it comes, like the preparation for it. But we take that time when we use it for like team building, team bonding and stuff like that. So we just try to have a lot of fun when we're, you know, preparing for our big events that we have. Some things to remember when you're fundraising are when you're trying to sell a product to somebody or get money from them, you want to make sure that what you're trying to sell or the image you're trying to portray relates to them. Otherwise, they're not going to really be interested in giving you any of their money. So for an example, you wouldn't want to go to like the ED of Toyota or something because he's all about selling his cars. He's not going to want to give you any money for your bikes or anything. So that wouldn't be a very smart thing to do. So you want to, you know, go to people who you think will want to support your cause. And incentives like promoting the company is a good way to get money from people. So if you're going to a company and you want a sponsorship, it's good to tell them that you're going to promote their company and let people know that they supported you. So other ways to fundraise, you don't have to have big fundraising events, but some small ways you can fundraise are doing things yourselves. Like a lot of people at Westtown like to wear cycling caps, so Girls Bike Club has taken the role of making cycling caps. So that's one of the things that Girls Bike Club does to fundraise. So this is a picture of all of our girls working on cycling caps and other things like bike chains and keychains and stuff like that. And we also do jewelry making with bike parts. So we make earrings and bracelets and a lot of cool stuff out of bike chains and stuff. Another fundraising thing that we have is Tour de Fat. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that.
I participated in it when you actually.
Yeah. So Tour de Fat is a lot of fun. They go to different cities, and when they come to Chicago, Westtown Bikes, we're their how do you say that? Like
We're their main host.
We're their main host, so we get the most of the funds that they raise. So that's always a lot of fun. So what we do at Tour de Fat is we have a table there, and we table, and that's also an event we use to recruit young ladies for Girls Bike Club or kids for Bike Club. Yeah. Another fundraiser that we have, actually Girls Bike Club, we plan and organize and promote this event, and it's called Heels on Wheels. We just had our second annual Heels on Wheels last month, and we used those funds to come here to the Youth Bike Summit. So that was pretty exciting to plan and organize and promote that. Basically what we did was we just went to local businesses within our neighborhood, and we asked them if they can donate. Like, for an example, this one company, they were a coffee intelligentsia. They're a coffee shop. So we asked them if they can donate coffee, and they did. So those were one of our silent auction things. We also had raffles. Our local movie theater, which is the Logan Square Movie Theater, they donated movie tickets and popcorn passes, so we were able to get free popcorn and movie tickets for people. So, and then the main event was a fashion show. So the theme was upcycling, which is the theme of today's fashion show. So basically that just consisted of them wearing clothes that they either altered themselves or bought at the thrift store. So it was a lot of fun. Some of the last things I want to leave you guys with is what fundraising events, they benefit you not only because you get funds from fundraising, you also you're able to recruit people, event planning, recruitment, experience, leadership. So my experience from planning fundraisers and organizing fundraisers, it can sometimes be very stressful because you want it to be the best that it can be, and like you're giving a lot of energy into that. But it pays off a lot because through planning these things, I know what I want to do in life, which is plan events and stuff like that, and I want to go into that kind of field. And so you also learn how to attain leadership qualities, and you learn all these cool skills by doing fundraisers. So they're a lot of fun. They're definitely something that you should look into if you're in need of funds for anything. And that's it for
Thank you,
me.
Cora. We're gonna have all three presentations, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions and things like that. Just give it a word. All right, Jeremy, you want to join us? Jeremy Santiago is one of our bike apprentices. So he represents kind of the ladder of opportunity that we provide through Westtown Bikes. You got your start with Bike Club, right?
Yeah, I started off with Bike Club, and then I, over the years, I just helped with After School Matters programs and stuff.
Can you explain a little bit what After School Matters is?
After School Matters is so After School Matters gives the kids in the community another opportunity to pursue something else, like cycling. For example, we offer them opportunity to learn about safe cycling and basic bike maintenance so that they can repair their bicycles whenever they need to. Today I'm going to be talking about how to organize bike valet and how it could be successful and you can create funds for it. For example, there are a few steps that you would need for bike valet. The most important would be volunteers. Now you can find any volunteer, but the good thing that makes a good volunteer is someone that is reliable, presentable, that's respectful, like well-mannered, that can communicate with people and carry on conversations so that people can feel that their bikes are safe. Another thing would be that you would need to check out the space. For example, when we did Heels on Wheels, we were in a lot, you can say, that was pretty flat. You know, it was a concrete surface, so that way, for example, like if you were to do bike valet and it was on like mud or something, like if the bike racks got too heavy, then they would like sink over and flop and bikes can fall and damage. The next part.
Can I just interrupt? Can you just kind of define what bike valet is?
Oh,
in case?
Well, bike valet is pretty much just like the cars would, like when you see valets at other events, that people would prefer someone to park their car and to go get their car for them, as opposed to locking their bike up on like a street pole like 3 blocks away or something. You know, they can bike to the event and leave their bike with us. Another thing that is very important is a bike rack system. One of the bike rack systems that I'm familiar with from my experiences, it's similar to what cops use to block the streets, like the horses. It's pretty easy. It's more convenient. You can build them yourself. You can modify them any way possible, as opposed to looking up online and paying for something that's like heavier and limited space. And another thing is important is you need a tracking system. You need a way to figure out whose bike belongs to who. For example, when I did the bike valet, we used snap bracelets with little different individual emblems on them so we can distinguish whose bike belonged to who. I mean, most people did recognize their bikes. For example, like when someone would lose their bracelet, they would come, and then we would pretty much trust the cyclists because everybody was usually the usuals that come to most of our events and stuff. If you couldn't find snap bracelets, you can always use something like raffle tickets or scotch tape and a marker and just put like numbers or letters. Another important thing would be, I'm sorry, I just got a blank right now. I'm not the best public speaker now, but you would need, let me see. Sorry guys, let me just refer to my notes for a second if you don't mind. And then you would need to figure out a way to pay your volunteers. For example, when we did Heels on Wheels, all the tips and our funds that we earned from there came to the youth so that they can come today to present ourselves in our workshops, in our fundraising 101 and stuff. And it was an awesome experience. And for example, like we had a nice chip jar. It was pretty presentable. Like people would notice it. Like there'd be signs there. You can see, like it would say, like for example, it would say like all the funds that we were getting here will provide us everything that we would need to get here. For example, another thing that is major is you would need some way to transport all your materials, like for the wood, your workers, your tracking systems and stuff. So you would want to find either someone that has a van, or you can rent a U-Haul, so that way it's more secure. You wouldn't want someone like that just has their car and like a pickup truck with no insurance or anything, so that it's like liable issues and stuff. And for example, like you would need to figure out a way to like make everything like mold together, like make people feel that they're warm, that their bikes are going to be safe, as opposed to them preferring to lock their bikes up elsewhere. It's pretty awesome experience from my experiences. Well, that's all I have so far.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. All right, I'm just going to say a few things to wrap up, and then we'll just open it up for questions and comments and what have you. And I'd love to hear, you know, what all of you have been doing in terms of fundraising. You know, we're all. It's funny. I'm not a fundraiser by training, but fell into it because I was close friends with Alex and volunteered for him, and then wanted to support the effort. And you tend to find, especially in bike-related nonprofits, a lot of anxiety about fundraising. You know, we're in it for riding the bikes, you know, or we're in it for the cool clothes, or we're in it for the camaraderie and the friendship. And we're typically not the kind of people that want to approach the business side of this. If we did, you know, we would go into business for ourselves. That being said, and hopefully from both what Cora and Jeremy have said, fundraising can actually be fun if you don't overthink it. And there are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, what I would say, kind of rules of thumb when you're doing kind of youth-focused fundraising. That's really important to remember for the organizers. And they, just so you can remember them, they all begin with P. So it's the 4 Ps of fundraising. It just happened that way. The first of all is don't do it alone. If you've got a lot of anxiety, share the load. You know, Cora works with some really great buddies, as does Jeremy. So always try to share the load and work with other people. What you find, especially in large urban areas where you have a number of bike programs or a number of non-bike youth programs, is that organizations will share the load of fundraising through partnerships as well. We typically work not with other bike groups, but we work with other youth groups that want to have a bike element involved in their youth programming. They're looking to expand. So After School Matters, as Jeremy referred to, was started by former Mayor Daley and his wife, Marge, late wife. She died several years ago of cancer. And that program was to provide programming in the time from the end of school until parents get home. And they do all kinds of things. So they come to us and they say, look, we want to have a bike program. So we also want to support biking in Chicago. There's a good example. We work with YMCAs, girls and boys clubs. Again, looking to, you know, add and enhance their program. And that you know, kind of leads to the second kind of rule of thumb in doing fundraising for us, and that's what I call position. We've been very successful because we've positioned ourselves not primarily as a bike organization, but as a youth organization that wants to develop new leaders and new entrepreneurs, and the tool we use is bikes. You find that when you position yourself that way, again, going back to partnerships, it's a lot easier to approach partners with the programming, because what you share is you share the youth, right? They might do it through a religious motivation, or they do it through a leadership focus. We do it through biking. So you find what your position is with other groups, and that position is, you know, what you can share to create partnerships. The third P is participation, and in parentheses, of youth. This is really important. I think we're rare as a bike organization, as a youth organization in Chicago, in that our youth actually participate in our fundraising. They're not just up there to be cute faces, even though they are both very cute. All right, they're there to do the work. They're there to support the mission, and in a sense, that's part of their youth development. Is not just the fact that we're getting money so we can do the programs, but they're learning about how to manage a fundraising event. And they're learning all kinds of other skills from that experience, and then they can go off in their own lives and apply those lessons. Now, let me tell you, there's nothing more scary as a fundraiser than sharing the load. So you really have to trust in your youth, and you have to trust in your program that you've got the right kids working, that you've got the right young people working, that they've got the responsibility, they've got the know-how. If you can trust in your program, you can trust in your youth. And then finally, that leads to the final P, which is productivity or product. You really need to be honest with yourselves about what the purpose of the fundraising event is. How much money you want to make. But more importantly, I think the real productivity that comes out of fundraising where youth are involved is the growth and the experience that the youth are going to go through. That's really your top goal. The money is a pleasant second place, all right? So in a sense, no fundraiser when youth are doing it fails because they have learned, a boatload of things from running this particular fundraising event. And again, you get the money. That's a great, second thing that you get. Finally, well, no, let's see, how is our time going here? Yeah, why don't we end it with that? Do you all have any questions or comments for Cora or Jeremy? Yes, sir. Oh, and we'll do this like a TV show. And just, tell us who you are for the live stream people and stuff like that.
So I am Evan Franco. I am from Phoenix Bikes, Arlington, Virginia. My question is, what kind of goals do you guys set? Not as in like money-wise, as in like otherwise, as in like what do you plan to accomplish with it, or as in like how many youth do you want?
So a goal that I always try to set with my fundraisers with West Town Bikes and Girls Bike Club is to get my friends that don't bike as much or don't bike at all to come to the events. That's always shooting for something high, because if they're not really avid bike riders, they won't really be interested in attending a fundraiser that's for a bike shop. So that's always a goal of mine, and I succeed every time. I always have friends that come out every time, different friends. That's one of my goals. You can't really set a goal for money, because if you're stressing out about, I need to make this certain amount of money, and like I don't think that's a good technique to use. I never do it that way. But yeah, that's one of the other goals. The goals that I set. Do you want to say something on that?
Well, towards bike valet, it really varies depending on if your event is being contracted so that you can actually make money yourself, or as if you're just working for tips. So like for example, like if you have I've ended the night sometimes where I've only made like a few dollars, about like $10, and I would give it to the younger youth because it's just I'm there just to have fun, just to be able to show that anybody can do something, as opposed to I'm out here to make this my living, like I'm out here representing West Town Bikes and showing them with everything about West Town, and the youth has a big powerful aspect to that. So the more people that can come out, the easier it is, the less load you have on yourself.
I would want to say another goal of Girls Bike Club would be recruitment, and just to bring great exposure to Girls Bike Club and West Town Bikes. The more successful the event, the more chances you have of bringing in more people or getting more funds.
Any other questions? Yeah.
In terms of both participating and volunteering at these events, do you rather have more youth members or adult members?
Well, that it varies, honestly. I mean, well, if we're doing an event for the youth, we would prefer more youth to be involved because it will show that our programs are actually developing as youth, as opposed to like adults being out there and fundraising for the youth. It'll be like the youth are fundraising for themselves so that they can promote themselves and promote what Westtown is about.
Yeah, the since a lot of us at Westtown kind of already pretty much know what we're doing since we've been doing it for so long, we're comfortable with running events, you know, with just ourselves. But sometimes it's really good to have an adult there, like, because they know a lot more than we do. So sometimes they are useful.
But in terms
Sometimes.
of participants also.
Oh, participants, yeah. If it's so can you restate your question then?
It was in terms of both participants and volunteering. Is what my question was.
So
In terms of participants.
yeah, if it was a fundraiser for the youth, like Girls Bike Club, yeah, we would want more youth to come to the fundraiser. It depends though, because if it's youth, then like that means like teenagers and probably even elementary school kids and stuff like that. So they won't really be able to contribute as far as money goes. But they are good because that brings recruitment. You know, that brings in people for us to have within our club. But it's most of the time always better for it to be adults then, because they are the ones that can contribute more money, like for silent auctions or for raffles and stuff like that. But for raffles, actually, those work out pretty good for younger people, like teenagers and stuff, because raffles are only like $1 a ticket or $2 for tickets. So it just depends on what you're doing within that fundraising event.
Yeah, it's important to remember too that in working with adults as potential donors, our youth get a lot of great experience in how to talk to adults and how to present themselves to adults. And of course, you know, having as many young people there as possible kind of shows the impact of our program. Did you?
Yeah, just a quick question. My name's Sam, and I was just curious if you guys do any fundraising that's not event-based, like anything like crowdsourcing, you know, like on a website, or just anything else that might be more feasible for, you know, an organization that doesn't work like directly with a lot of kids or something. I don't know.
Well, you probably weren't here for my presentation, but I showed a slideshow of some things, ways that you can fundraise. So Girls Bike Club, we make cycling caps. We sew and make our own cycling caps. We also make bike jewelry. We make earrings and bracelets and stuff like that. There's plenty of ways you can fundraise. Like he does bike valet. There's a lot of ways you can fundraise. You can make and sell your own goodies, like food and stuff. Everybody loves food. I love food. So that's always a good way to fundraise.
Cora, can you also tell me, we've actually made the big jump into grant writing.
Oh yes. Another way to get funds is grant writing. So Westtown Bikes I helped applied for a MICVA challenge grant, so that was pretty interesting. I've never done anything like that, and it was a mini grant. So if we get it, then we get $1,000, and we're gonna use that to make a garden. So there's plenty of ways to get some funds.
Yeah, MICVA Challenge is founded by a federal judge who lives and is from Chicago and works on kind of the leadership development side. And part of the process was actually sending representatives of Girls Bike Club to a all-youth conference where they noodled around the ideas for the grant that they were going to apply for. And they did that all on their own, you know. So that's, you know, another good. Yeah, sorry. I have to use the microphone, so that's why I'm hovering here.
Hi, I'm Heather, and my question is, you mentioned that one of your goals in terms of getting fundraising is to get people who are not bike shop people to your event, right? So your friends who don't bike, stuff like that. How do you do that?
Yeah, okay, so that can be very hard. So as I mentioned before, like one of our really successful fundraisers are Heels on Wheels, which is an annual event that we have. The main event is a fashion show. So my friends, I love fashion and clothes and stuff like that. So a lot of my friends, since they're girls, they're like, oh, like they love clothes and stuff too, just like me. So that's kind of my incentive. Like, oh, we have the main event is a fashion show. I always mention that and talk about the food, because there's always good food there. Also the silent auction pieces that we had and the raffle prizes that we had, those were really like great for bringing people in. Like we had chrome bags, the movie ticket things, the popcorn. We had a lot of good prizes. So those are always good ways to bring people in. So on our Facebook page, we took pictures of stuff, and listed all the sponsors that we had. So those are very good ways to get people in.
Oh, like for example, like I've had a few friends seen me doing bike valet one time, and they were curious, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm actually doing bike valet for an event," and I brought it up to them a few times. Like when I did Heels on Wheels, it was pretty interesting because I had ran into like a few of my buddies when I was walking back to put bikes to in our space, and they were curious, like, "What are you doing for it?" I was like, "Oh, it's an event, you know, it's an annual event that we do. It's a fundraiser for the Girls Bike Club, and it's a fashion show." So the more you bring something to someone's attention, the more curious they are going to be, the more open-minded they're going to be, and like, let me give this a shot. What's the worst that could happen, you know? They could have fun, have a good time about it, you know, and then they'll come next year. Then that's more people to come. So if you told someone and then they told someone about it, it just continues the chain.
So like social networking sites are a great way to, that's a great way to get things out.
More questions?
My name is Leo, and where do your events normally like take place for fundraising?
So it depends, cause it just depends on the places that you can get, because it is a fundraiser. You don't wanna, spend a lot of money on booking a place. Usually we just take what we can get. West Town Bikes being a not-for-profit organization, people know that we're not gonna like go rent out a ballroom or something to have a fundraiser. So. But we usually get nice places. The last place that we had a fundraiser in, which was in January, we had a studio. So that was pretty cool. Art gallery studio. It was really cool. So, yeah, that's one of the places that we use.
Yeah, it's again kind of thinking in terms of partnership and sharing the load. People love bike spaces, we've noticed, especially people who may not be into biking, but they're curious about the equipment, they're curious about the bikes themselves. And if you've got a large enough space that you're already working in, that can be a wonderful kind of open house experience for folks. So think in those terms. And then, of course, we have partner organizations that have spaces like development. We rose out of a development corporation for affordable housing as a youth program, and then we went independent. And so Bickerdijk has that's the name of the development corporation. Bickerdijk has offered us space in some of their buildings to do events and whatnot. And then also, we work very closely with we're located on Division, and so it's the Division Street Business Development Association of the Paseo Boricua, which is the Puerto Rican neighborhood in Chicago. And we've got businesses that can offer space as well. It really is kind of, mining your network and figuring out what everybody can give in their own way in that sense. Yes, in the back.
Katie Lupo from Gearing Up Bicycles in DC, Washington, DC. And now I forgot my question.
Oh.
What was my question? Oh, when you partner with an organization, what exactly does that mean? So say you partner with the Boys and Girls Club for an event. Are you looking to them to bring people, and then are you splitting all the fundraising with them at the end, or what? Can you speak to that a little bit more? Anybody?
Yeah, I guess I'm answering that question. Right. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I'm moving around like Phil Donahue here. It really depends. Most of our partnerships with non-bike organizations is to add value to their existing youth programs. So typically they will subcontract us, so they will pay us money to provide the program and to provide the instructors and whatnot. ASM, After School Matters, is a really good example because we're basically working for the city of Chicago that hosts these programs. We have, at other times, worked together in the grant-making area. We've worked together with organizations where we've shared or split, depending on how much effort we put in and they put in. There's a lot of health and wellness money out there right now for urban areas, and I can only talk about urban areas because that's where I live and work. A lot of health and wellness, and so you'll have as an example, Blue Cross Blue Shield has a big program in Chicago, and we're part of 12 organizations that service that particular grant, and we do the bike side of it. Obviously, other people will do the nutrition side. Other people will do other sports and what have you. The upside is, you're carrying the load together. The downside is that you lose a certain freedom of movement because we have to measure our outcomes very specifically to the grant, and the outcomes are determined by all the organizations, as opposed to, doing your outcomes based on a single relationship with a funder like that. Anybody else?
Given what sounds like your very diversified funding streams, how do you manage like mission direction and like keying partnerships to your goals as an organization, or are those goals by necessity more fluid?
Right. I've worked for a number of organizations in this neighborhood and throughout Chicago, and one of the things that excuse us, Cora has to go because she's getting ready for the
show. Sorry,
and these guys are going too?
Thanks for your time.
If you want, I'll go to the front again. Sorry. Biggest problem is sharing, the adults sharing the youth. We have to work out, who goes where and when. But getting back to your answer for your question, of all the organizations I've worked with, and what makes Westtown a real pleasure is that we have very little mission creep, which is the term that people use in fundraising about where you chase the money. It's like, hey, there's a ton of money out there for doing biking to, healthy sources of food or something, or setting up a garden. And all of a sudden you become a gardening organization, or you become a food desert organization. Well, the very simple rule of thumb we have is that we're a youth organization that uses bikes. So everything is kind of based on that judgment. And also we have a fairly conservative board that actually imposes limits on how much grant writing we can do, because they don't want to see us do mission creep as well. Anybody else?
You said you guys work for the city of Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys involved are you guys involved with the public schools?
Yes. When we say, you got to remember that the school district in Chicago is run by the city. We don't have a board of education like many districts do, and that's because frankly our system faces a lot of trouble, and it was put under the control of the mayor about 20 years ago to kind of get it back on track, and obviously it hasn't been very successful because it's still under the control of the city. So yes, we do work with the school. We don't work, and we also work with the Catholic schools in Chicago, which has a pretty healthy sector as well. And when you're working with Catholic schools, when you're working with Catholic schools, it's a lot harder because each school is fairly independent from all the other ones. When we work for CPS, Chicago Public Schools, you can one program fits everybody. So that's always a thing to think about, especially with those kinds of partnerships. Sorry about that. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Hi there, I'm Cappy. I'm from Cyclopedia, which is an organization here in New York and in Rochester, New York. I came in while you were talking about fundraising, and then I heard you just mention the limitations that your organization puts on going for grants. Mm-hmm. Are there grants that do fit you guys very well, and you've been very successful in getting? And do you go back to those same sources? And tell me more about what kind of time and effort you guys put into the grant side rather than fundraising.
I'm the first full-time paid salaried fundraiser that Westtown has had. Before me, there were part-time contractors or volunteers. And the reason that they hired me was they wanted to do more than just bring in revenue. They wanted to use the grant process and the fundraising process to kind of tighten up and to transition our mission into new kind of directions. Basically find out what we do really well and do it better, and then kind of slough off the rest of it. What you're finding in the granting world is that funders are moving from single-year relationships to multi-year relationships. That if they give you money for year one, they typically will do follow-on funding for year 2 and 3. Of course, you have to prove that you've done the outcomes, that you've achieved the outcomes you said in year 1. But typically, that's really becoming the big deal. The other big change that's happened, of course, anybody who's done fundraising in this room or knows people that have, it's evaluation. And really having measurable outcomes. It's no longer, I like to say, it's no longer counting smiles, you know, but it's, you know, are you changing the attitudes of young people in a particular direction that the funder wants you to do it? And they want a lot of proof. In some ways it makes it easy. In other ways it makes it difficult because for as many funders that are out there, foundations, corporate, what have you, the rubric that they use, the measurements that they use are all different, you know, even though you're doing the same thing. Even though you're doing the same thing. Does that answer your question? I know.
What kind of metrics, for example?
God, I was just in an evaluation workshop, so I'll have to crib some of that. Typically, what they're looking at is what's called it's an acronym called SMART. Are your measures sustainable over time? Do they keep measuring the same thing over and over and over again? Are they measurable themselves? So are you counting noses? Are you doing BMI for like weight loss or weight gain? I mean, those kinds of really hard numbers. And to be quite honest, I can't remember now what the R and the T were for. But it's those kinds of things. I mean, it's very much, the business world has really impacted the nonprofit world. You know, I mean, the whole idea of vision and mission, it comes right out of, you know, Business 101. And so measuring outcomes has done the same thing. It's very concrete types of measurements.
And then another follow-up,
Mm-hmm.
The grants you do attain, are they mostly local or are they federal? You know, what kind of scale are we talking about?
Right. Most of our big grant, most of our big funders through big grants are regional. So the Chicago metro area. We hesitate to even go for state funding. We don't even think about federal at this point. Typically, we're downstream from that. So like Active Transportation Alliance, which is the big bike organization in Chicago, will get money from the state and the feds and then subcontract to us to do it. That's typical. And the reason why we don't do federal and state grants is that you have to have a lot of reserves up front because they pay their bills very slowly. And so, you know, like in our apprentice program where we're training bike mechanics, we have to pay them their stipend. So we've got to have that money to do it or else the program doesn't work. And especially with the state of Illinois, they're a little slow on their, on what they do. Question here?
Okay, so how do you prove the more, I don't know, esoteric sort of outcomes? For instance, teaching a kid patience by teaching them how to true a wheel. Yeah. Because you can't just true a wheel in 5 minutes. You have to sit there and do it. Right. And having just taught 4 kids how to do that, over the week they tried to hide in the bathroom. They did everything but true the wheel. So, but like by the end they got through it.
Now you know why I'm on the fundraising side.
Right.
Some easier in some cases.
But like, how do you measure that patience? Where, you know, where's the outcome there? Where I say, oh, so and so went and hid in the bathroom the first time he trued a wheel. 3 weeks later, he'll do it in 10 minutes.
Right. There's a new approach to strategy, tactics, and mission and vision, and it's called the theory of change. And it's actually kind of, you know, a trademark deal. And what it is basically think in terms of your primary measurable outcomes. So in this case, I mean, I'm thinking of your program, and I'm just going to make some assumptions. Okay, so you've got so many young people that are in the program for so many times a week or so many times a month or so many times a year. They're your concrete measures, right? You have like a 90% retention rate. Now, an intermediate goal that leads to that are the less tangible goals like you're talking about, like change in attitude, right? Learning of patience. I mean, that's the way you've got to kind of lay it out. You start with, we're going to work with, you know, you actually work backwards. You know, we're going to, at the end of this program, we're going to have so many people who participated and learned the following concrete skills, right? That they can actually true a wheel. And then back behind that, you've told that, you know, you've changed their attitude in terms of when to show up for an assignment, to complete the assignment, to cooperate. You see? So you kind of break the intangible down to its tangible parts. Does that make sense to you? Wow. I was confused when I first heard it. Okay, in the back of the room, did you?
Yeah, it's kind of just like that. Similar question. I was just going to ask about what kind of metrics you generally will use for the evaluation parts of grant writing.
Well, again, trying to take anything that's intangible, like attitude change and whatnot, and breaking it down into, its more tangible bits. We work in an underserved community that's primarily Latino, Puerto Rican, and then African American, and then white immigrant. We have a lot of Ukrainian and Polish kids involved in our program. So we've got the demographics, gender, again, skills, retention rates. Those are the kinds of things we use. And then what you do is you back up. You can also, because at the same time that funders have gotten really into measuring the numbers, they also want the smiling faces. They also want the stories. That's where you handle the intangibles. All you guys have seen Lebster. He's our rock star. Lebster is the guy with the wild hair. He's Puerto Rican. He's covered in tattoos. Not only is he a great young man and a leader in the community, emerging leader in the community, but he has a great story. And so, don't take this wrong, but this is how fundraisers think. You think, okay, where can we roll out Lebster when we need to ask people for money? What part of the story can we, tell based on Lebster's experience and the change that we've obviously had in his life? Jeremy and Cora, again, are other two great examples. And when they went to the Mikvah Challenge conference, they came back, and I heard from colleagues who work for Mikvah that they were the most impressive group there. And so that's already making my job easier. So, the nervousness that you have with working with young people, especially in kind of a tight deadline environment like grants, is worth the anxiety, because they help you make a really great argument like that. Anyone else? Anybody else? I have business cards up here. If y'all, come up with questions over the weekend and you see me here, come up and talk to me. If you want to email me, we can start a conversation online. Because to be quite honest, one of the kind of agenda items I have, now that we're organizing kind of a national level organization for, youth bike organizations, I would love to start something up that supports fundraisers in us, because I really see it as a need out there, because there aren't a lot of people that are doing, kind of organized fundraising within bike organizations. It's so new, I think, and people need support, so we should try to support each other in that. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry Cora and Jeremy had to leave, but they're getting ready for the Heels on Wheels for the fashion show. I would urge you to go see that if you haven't already been making stuff for it. It should be fun, and you'll be able to see kind of a good example of how Westtown does its thing, as it were. All right, thank you very much.